releasing Nanda Maharaj from the clutches of Varuna. The Govardhan Puja ceremony took place on the new moon day. After this, there were torrents of rain and hailstorms imposed by King Indra for 7 days. Nine, oh. 9 days of the waxing moon have passed. On the 10th day, King Indra worshipped Lord Krishna, and thus the matter was satisfactorily settled. After this, on the 11th day of the full moon, Ekadashi, Maharaj Nanda observed fasting for the whole day, and just early in the morning of the next day, Dvadashi, he went to take a bath in the river Yamuna. He entered deep into the water of the river, but he was arrested immediately by one of the servants of Varuna Dev. This servant brought Nanda Maharaj before the demigod Varuna and accused him of taking a bath in the river at the wrong time. According to astronomical calculations, the time in which he took a bath was considered demoniac. The fact was that Nanda Maharaj wanted to take a bath in the river Yamuna early in the morning before the sunrise, but somehow or other he was a little too early, and he bathed at an inauspicious time. Consequently, he was arrested. When Nanda Maharaj was taken away by one of Varuna's servants, Nanda's companions began to call loudly for Krishna and Balaram. Immediately, Krishna and Balaram could understand that Nanda Maharaj had been taken by a servant of Varuna. Thus they went to the abode of Varuna, for they were pledged to give protection to the inhabitants of Vrindavan, who were all unalloyed devotees of the Lord. Devotees, having no shelter other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, naturally cried to him for help, exactly like children who do not know anything but the protection of their parents. The demigod Varuna received Lord Krishna and Balaram with great respect and said, "My dear Lord, actually at this very moment, because of your presence, my life as the demigod Varuna has become successful. Although I am the proprietor of all the treasures in the water, I know that such possessions do not make for a successful life. But at this moment, as I look at you, my life is made completely successful because by seeing you, I no longer have to accept a material body. Therefore, O Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Supreme Brahman, and Supersoul of everything, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you. You are the Supreme Transcendental Personality. There is no possibility of imposing the influence of material nature upon you. I am very sorry that my foolish man, by not knowing what to do or what not to do, has mistakenly arrested your father, Nanda Maharaj. So I beg your pardon for the offense of my servant. I think that it was your plan to show me your mercy by your personal presence here. My dear Lord Krishna, Govinda, be merciful upon me. Here is your father. You can take him back immediately." In this way, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, rescued his father and presented him before his friends, bringing them great jubilation. Nanda Maharaj was surprised that although the demigod was so opulent, he offered such respect to Krishna. That was very astonishing to Nanda, and he began to describe the incident to his friends and relatives with great wonder. Actually, although Krishna was acting so wonderfully, Maharaj Nanda and Mother Yashoda could not think of him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Instead, they always accepted him as their beloved child. Thus, Nanda Maharaj did not accept the fact that Varuna worshipped Krishna because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rather, he took it that because Krishna was such a wonderful child, he was respected even by Varuna. The friends of Nanda Maharaj, all the cowherd men, became eager to know if Krishna was actually the Supreme Personality and if he was going to give them all salvation. When they were all thus consulting among themselves, Krishna understood their minds, and in order to assure them of their destiny in the spiritual kingdom, he showed them the spiritual sky. Generally, ordinary people are engaged simply in working hard in the material world, and they have no information that there is another kingdom or another sky, which is known as the spiritual sky, where life is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. As it is stated in the Bhagavad-Gita, a person returning to that spiritual sky never returns to this material world of death and suffering. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is always eager to give information to the conditioned soul that there is a spiritual sky far, far beyond this material sky, transcendental to the innumerable universes created within the total material energy. Krishna is, of course, always very kind to every conditioned soul, but as stated in the Bhagavad-Gita, he is especially inclined to the pure devotees. Hearing their inquiries, Krishna immediately thought that his devotees in Vrindavan should be informed of the spiritual sky and the Vaikuntha planets therein. Within the material world, every conditioned soul is in the darkness of ignorance. This means that all conditioned souls are under the concept of bodily existence. Everyone is under the impression that he is of this material world. And with this concept of life, everyone is working in ignorance in different forms of life. The activities of the particular type of body are called karma, or fruits of action. All conditioned souls, being under the impression of the bodily concept, are working according to their particular type of body. These activities are creating their future conditioned life. Because they have very little information of the spiritual world, they do not generally take to spiritual activities, which are called bhakti-yoga. Those who successfully practice bhakti-yoga go directly to the spiritual world after giving up this present body, and there they become situated in one of the Vaikuntha planets. The inhabitants of Vrindavan are all pure devotees. Their destination after quitting the body is Krishna Loka. They even surpass the Vaikuntha Lokas. The fact is that those who are always engaged in Krishna consciousness and mature, pure devotional service are given the chance, after death, to gain Krishna's association in one of the universes within the material world. Krishna's pastimes are continuously going on, either in this universe or in another universe. Just as the sun globe is passing over many places across this earthly planet, so Krishna Lila, or the transcendental advent of pastimes of Krishna, are also going on continuously, either in this or another universe. The mature devotees who have completely executed Krishna consciousness are immediately transferred to the universe where Krishna is appearing. In that universe, the devotees get their first opportunity to associate with Krishna personally and directly. The training goes on, as we see in the Vrindavan Leela of Krishna within this planet. Krishna therefore revealed the actual features of the Vaikuntha planets so that the inhabitants of Vrindavan could know their destination. Thus, Krishna showed them the eternal, ever-existing spiritual sky, which is unlimited and full of knowledge. Within this material world, there are different grades or forms, and according to the grade, knowledge is proportionately manifested. For example, the knowledge in the body of a child is not as perfect as the knowledge in the body of an adult man. Everywhere there are different grades of living entities, in aquatic animals, in the plants and trees, in the reptiles and insects, in birds and beasts, and in the civilized and uncivilized human forms of life. Above the human form of life, there are demigods. Charnas and Siddhas are up to Brahma Loka, where Lord Brahma lives. And among these demigods, there are always different grades of knowledge. But past this material world, in the spiritual sky, everyone is in full knowledge, and therefore all the living entities there are engaged in devotional service to the Lord, either in the Vaikuntha planets or in Krishna Loka. As it is confirmed in the Bhagavad-Gita, full knowledge means knowing Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Vedas and the Bhagavad-Gita, it is also stated that in the Brahma Jyotir, or spiritual sky, there is no need of sunlight, moonlight, or electricity. All the planets there are self-illuminating, and all of them are eternally situated. There is no question of creation and annihilation in the Brahma Jyotir, or spiritual sky. The Bhagavad-Gita also confirms that beyond the material sky, there is another, eternal spiritual sky, where everything is eternally existing. Direct knowledge of the spiritual sky can be had only by great sages and saintly persons who have already surpassed the influence of the three material modes of nature by engaging in devotional service, or Krishna consciousness. Unless one is constantly situated on that transcendental platform, it is not possible to understand the spiritual nature. Therefore, it is recommended that one should take to bhakti yoga and keep himself engaged 24 hours a day in Krishna consciousness, which places one beyond the reach of the modes of material nature. One in Krishna consciousness can easily understand the nature of the spiritual sky and Vaikuntha Loka. The inhabitants of Vrindavan, being always engaged in Krishna consciousness, could therefore very easily understand the transcendental nature of the Vaikuntha Lokas. Thus, Krishna led all the cowherd men, headed by Nanda Maharaj, to the lake where Akrura would later be shown the Vaikuntha planetary system. They took their bath immediately and saw the real nature of the Vaikuntha Lokas. After seeing the spiritual sky and the Vaikuntha Lokas, all the men, headed by Nanda Maharaj, felt wonderfully blissful, and upon coming out of the lake, they saw Krishna, who was being worshipped with excellent prayers. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 28th chapter of Krishna, releasing Nanda Maharaj from the clutches of Varuna.
Om Jnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shradakaya Chakshurn Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Tadhati Shapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalang Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prashabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Horipriye Vanchakolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shadi Gaur Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The Ekadasi comes and Nanda Maharaj fasts for the day and then wants to take an auspicious bath in the Jamuna the next morning. But he's a little too early, so he gets arrested by the servants of Varuna and taken away to Varuna's place. And Krishna and Balaram could understand what had happened, so they went down there to retrieve him. The companions of Nanda Maharaj were calling for Krishna, help, help. So Krishna and Balaram came. And it's best that their devotees are just like children. When there's a problem, they call for Krishna spontaneously. This is not the same as the materialists who are asking for material advantages. It's just a natural function of the spontaneous love of the devotees. They don't know anyone but Krishna, so they're like children in that regard. So Varuna receives Krishna and says that now my life has become successful. Just being a demigod and having so much power and possessions, that's not my success. My success is now that I've gotten the opportunity to see you. And he apologizes for his foolish servant. The master has to take the responsibility when the servant messes up. Then the master's responsible. And the master is responsible because it's his man. Therefore, the disciples of the spiritual master should try to be very careful and not to do anything that brings ill repute or material reactions upon the spiritual master. Just like we see that Chanakya Pandit says that if there's a fire in the hollow of one tree, the whole forest burns down. So similarly, a bad son brings disrepute to the whole family. I remember there was a murderer. He was a crazy man. It was a sensational serial murder case. And the murderer was apprehended and was being led into the court building by police. And the man's parents were there, shielding their faces with newspapers. Because it's so disgraceful that their son was this madman who'd killed so many people. So a disciple who acts wrongly brings disrepute to the spiritual master, or son or acts wrongly brings disrepute to the family. So one should try to act properly. And on the other side, if there's one fragrant tree in the forest, the whole forest becomes fragrant. Sandalwood? One fragrant tree makes the whole forest fragrant. In the same way, the child, just like, if someone becomes Mahatma Gandhi or George Washington or something, then this person was the grandfather of George Washington, or, whatever it was, the whole family becomes glorified. Or in Krishna's case, the Yadu dynasty is, who's Yadu? We hardly know, but because Krishna appeared in his dynasty, so Yadu is glorified. Krishna could appear anywhere, but he appeared in the Yadu dynasty. So because of Krishna, the dynasty becomes glorious. So similarly, when a disciple acts nicely in the service of Krishna, then it's a credit to the spiritual master, it's a credit to the whole family of devotees. So we should try to act in that spirit. That will be very good. So the Nanda Maharaj, Varuna apologized for the improper actions of his servant, but he says, I think it was just your plans so that you could come here and show me mercy. Now here's your father, you can take him back. And in this way, Krishna brought Nanda Maharaj back. And he expressed, when he was meeting with his friends, he was expressing surprise that Krishna was treated so nicely, so respectfully by the demigod Varuna. But Nanda Maharaj thought it's because Krishna is such a nice boy, even Varuna is respecting him. Because Krishna is such a nice boy. So these are the actions of Yoga Maya, even when there's abundant cause for seeing that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotees should just think, well, maybe he's a demigod, or he's such a nice boy. Or even if they think that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that doesn't last very long. Because it would get in the way of their loving relationship. So here, Nanda Maharaj thought, oh, Krishna is such a nice boy, even Varuna was honoring him. So then the friends of Nanda Maharaj, the cowherd men, became eager to know, is Krishna actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Is he going to give us liberation? It's in a sort of innocent way, we're thinking like that. And so Krishna, being affectionate to his devotees, showed them the spiritual sky. Briefly, Prabhupada describes the spiritual kingdom. Atad pasyate suryo na shashanko na bhavata. Yajadva nanivartante tadhama paramam. No need there of sun or moon or electricity or fire. Everything's self-illuminated. And when one goes there, one never has to come back. Life is eternal, blissful, full of knowledge. So that's the spiritual kingdom. Prabhupada said generally ordinary people are just working hard in the material world and they have no information of the spiritual sky. But here we get that information. And Prabhupada said, in fact, Krishna is always eager to give information about the spiritual sky to the conditioned souls. So Krishna thought, well, the Vrindavan devotees should certainly know about this. And so he showed them the spiritual sky with the Vaikuntha planets, everything. And they could see. By bhakti-yoga, Prabhupada explains, one becomes eligible to return to that spiritual sky after leaving this material body. So as pure devotees, the Brajbasis were all meant to attain that spiritual world after leaving this world. They were meant to attain Krishna Loka, which is higher than all the Vaikuntha planets. And Prabhupada gives some insight on what happens when a person attains perfection in Krishna consciousness. Then in the next life, he's born where Krishna is appearing. Because Krishna's pastimes are like the movements of the sun. Now it's 5:30 here. So the next time zone over, it's 6:30 or 7 o'clock. Next time zone over, 8 o'clock. And then someplace it's 5:30. When it's 6:30 here, it'll be 5:30. And the next time zone over, we're 5 o'clock, because India's weird. But the sun is always in that position. You just have to be in the right place to see it. So Krishna's pastimes are always going on, all of them. Now, if Krishna is killing Putana witch someplace, then that scene is over, but it'll appear in the next universe, next universe, next universe. Therefore, Krishna's pastimes are called Nitya Lila, eternal pastimes. So one who leaves the body in pure devotional service gets transferred to where Krishna is performing his pastimes in one of the universes of this material world. There he's trained up, he gets the first opportunity to meet Krishna, and as Prabhupada says, the training goes on. And then after that, one is promoted to Krishna Loka in the spiritual sky. And Prabhupada talks a little bit, I think the word here is probably ekaras. Our knowledge changes according to our body. When you have a child's body, you have a certain level of knowledge. In an older person's body, another kind of knowledge. You get an older body, I was telling what might happen. But according to the body, our knowledge changes. And our power changes, everything changes. Among the demigods, there's different grades of knowledge. Among the living entities throughout the universe, there are different grades of knowledge. The spirit soul is of one nature, but according to the body, our knowledge is differently manifest. But Krishna is of one standard. His knowledge, when he's a child, he's not less informed than when he's speaking Bhagavad-Gita at Kurukshetra. Because his body is transcendental. He's not subject to the limitations that afflict us. And Prabhupada, it's nice, I think this may be more than directly given in the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada explains the nature of the material world, the nature of the spiritual sky. Mentions that in the spiritual sky there's no influence of the modes of material nature, and that one can surpass the influence of these modes by engagement in devotional service or Krishna consciousness. So the Brajbasis are always engaged in Krishna consciousness, so Prabhupada said they could very easily understand the nature of the Vaikuntha Lokas. So Krishna led all the Brajbasis to this place where Krura would later be shown the Vaikuntha planets. They took their bath there, and there Krishna showed them the Vaikuntha Lokas, and they all felt blissful. And the chapter ends there. I just wanted to see something actually, but I'm looking at it. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, my question is related to, as we can read, by performing devotional service, we can surpass the three mode of nature. So, in our Krishna conscious life, like when we feel bliss in kirtan or making bhoga, or coming from arti or listening to Krishna Leela, so this we can say like we are surpassing three mode of nature, like the pleasure, the bliss that we get during.
Yeah, people are busy working hard and trying to enjoy. They're listening to mundane music. They're in some club or watching television. They're deeply immersed in the modes of material nature. But the devotees are engaged with Krishna, Krishna's holy name, Krishna's service, Krishna's message. So therefore they're on the platform beyond the three modes of nature. Mam chiyo vyabhicharena bhakti-yoga sevate. Sagunan samiti chaitam brahmabhudaya kalpate. But one should stay engaged in Krishna consciousness. That's the only thing. Otherwise, we come to the temple, we sing, we dance, and then we go do some nonsense. And that's not very good. We should try to arrange our lives in such a way that we're always busily engaged in devotional service. Then we stay on the spiritual platform. Is that okay?
Hare Krishna. So when one goes to a planet where Krishna is personally present to get trained up, do they take a material body that is born and dies and is under the modes of nature? Because I was wondering, how can you be under the modes of nature if you're serving Krishna directly? Like, I don't know.
Trying to think if I have any Shastric references about that. Otherwise, I just have to go on my common sense understanding. I don't think I have a Shastric reference. I can tell you my guess, but maybe it's better that I not guess. Is that okay? Mm-hmm.
Hare Krishna. So Nanda Maharaj made such a minor offense and he was, dragged away. And I can speak for myself. I make many offenses, but I haven't been dragged away somewhere. So how do we understand that?
You're not Nanda Maharaj. Nanda Maharaj was he was a good catch. If you catch Nanda Maharaj, then you'll catch Krishna. That was the real purpose. Just like Mahavishnu stole the sons of the Brahmin, and then Krishna and Arjuna had to search where have these sons gone, and they came to Vaikuntha and saw that Mahavishnu had stolen them. So what was the purpose? That Mahavishnu even wanted to get the darshan of Krishna and Arjuna. So when even Mahavishnu wants that darshan, what to speak of someone like Vrindavan? So it was Krishna's kindness, an arrangement that you kidnap my father, or you arrest my father, and I'll come rescue him. This is the pastime.
Hare Krishna. So Krishna sent the obstacle on the path in order to show his mercy. Maybe we experience that mercy also in our own lives by, for instance, that we get an insight about certain situation.
We do what? We experience that own mercy, or that same mercy when what?
By, for instance, that we get an insight about something. We suddenly realize something. But it seems that that insight is only for a little time after the obstacle has been overcome. And then afterwards it fades away again and we fall in the same trap. How can we keep the depth of those realizations?
Yeah. For us, it's practice. We have to practice and more than practice, seriously engage ourselves. If we're always engaged in Krishna's service, then we'll increasingly feel the presence of Krishna. We'll increasingly have realizations about Krishna. If we're sort of slack and nonchalant or dull about it, then we won't get the same result. So therefore, we should be enthusiastically engaged, busily engaged, so that we will have ever-increasing realization of Krishna. Yes, utsaha, nishchaya, dharya, all these things. Is that okay?
Yeah. Sometimes when we read a book, we read and we think, oh, I already know that. Or then sometimes we get an experience of that same lesson and still we don't learn from it. So it almost seems like these realizations come only by the mercy of Krishna. Is that
That's also true. There's no, I did this and therefore I must realize that. One realizes something, gets some realization by the mercy of Krishna. Otherwise, without Krishna's mercy, no one realizes anything. And what is that we were discussing? Pashana Pina Pashati. He sees, but he doesn't get it. Or what is that? Hani Hani Bhutani, Gachanti Himalayam. It's just Stabara, Shesha Stabara Ischanti Kimaisharya Atapana Yudhisthira Maharaj. Every day people are going to the Himalaya, to the place of Yamaraj. Ahani Hani Bhutani Gachanti Iha Himalayam. People every day are going to, they're dying. Every day everyone's dying and going to Yamaraj. We may not see where they go, but they die. And Shesha, those of us who are still left, Stavara Ichjanti, we want to stay here and live forever. Kimaisharya Ataparam, what could be more wonderful than this? We're seeing every day, and we're thinking, well, not me. So this is Maya. Avaranatmaka Shakti. Maya has two divisions, the throwing potency and the covering potency. The throwing potency throws us down into the material world, and the covering potency makes us think, good, nice, happy, or whatever, or miserable, but preoccupied with the dualities of the material world. So it's only by the mercy of the spiritual master, the devotees, Krishna, that one gets some understanding, higher understanding of Krishna consciousness. Then he can see. Anupashanti. Ekatvam anupashyata. We have to see, not just by seeing, but by seeing through the eyes of the eyes of knowledge, seeing through the acharyas, through the predecessors. There's some quote, it is a cliche by now. If I've been able to see more than other men, it's because I've stood on the shoulders of giants. It's Newton, I think. Some famous scientific statement, I'm able to know what I know because of the progress of previous scientists. But they don't know very much. But the enlightened souls or the devotees, they can see Vaikuntha. They can see the absolute truth. The scientists generally only see relativity. They see the dualities of this material world. They see what they can measure. But the devotees can see the absolute by seeing through the predecessor acharyas. Something else?
You mentioned that we don't know much about Yadu, and I personally don't know. So could you maybe tell us a bit about him?
About Yadu. His father, now let's see, this is Yayati. His father, Yayati, had been lusty and wanted to enjoy sense gratification. And King Yayati. And so he was enjoying, but even in his old age, no, I haven't enjoyed sufficiently. And now I can't enjoy, what can an old man enjoy? But he was given a benediction that if one of your sons, he had 12 sons or something, a whole batch. One of your sons will take your old age in exchange for his youth, and then you can go on enjoying. So all the sons refused. Who wants to become an old man in youth? But Yadu, right? Or was that Puru? Puru accepted. He accepted. And then Yadu, what was his position? He declined also. Because Puru declined. Puru accepted because he was dutiful. The other sons refused because they wanted sense gratification. And Yadu refused because he wanted Krishna to appear in his dynasty. That was Yadu's reason for refusing. So the other sons are, they're useless sons. And Puru is glorious because he sacrificed. And Yadu is the most glorious because although he didn't satisfy the wishes of his father, he became the forefather of Krishna. That was his reason. Then later, Yayati wised up and he gave Puru back his youth, and so on. That's 9th canto. Something else? Mm-hmm.
I was still thinking about this mercy aspect and how mostly mercy is causeless. Krishna's mercy is causeless. So if mercy is not following a particular system, how can Krishna be still equal to every living entity?
How can Krishna be equal to every living entity if mercy is not following a particular system? It's not mechanical, but it depends on of course, it doesn't depend, but generally Krishna reciprocates according to the heart of the devotee. Someone wants to surrender this way, Krishna reciprocates that way. It's not mechanical. Not that I chanted 64 rounds for 3 years. Now I expect to be liberated. We have the story of that Brahmin and the cobbler. The Brahmin wanted to know when he'd be liberated. You know the story. And it'll take a long time. But the cobbler, no, he'll be liberated because he had faith, he had confidence that, yes, this is Krishna's. So it's not just by a material ticking of the boxes, by meeting a set of requirements on a form. That, all right, now I've completed my form, all my requirements are there, here are my documents, and I expect to go back to Godhead. Krishna is interested in your love. Yome bhaktya priyachati. There's a story, this just because it's fun and instructive. I heard this story from Badri Narayan Maharaj. There was a very sinful person, but his wife was pious. And so the wife sort of dragged him one time to the church, for the Sunday services. So the man, is grumpily sitting there and enduring it all. And at the end of the service, the preacher says, now we're going to pass around the basket, and if you want to go to heaven, and you put your donation here, and that's how you go. So they sent around the basket, and the man put $20 into the basket, and they went home. And later the man died, and he showed up at the gates of heaven. And St. Peter, who's supposed to be the chowkidar, the authority at the gates. So the man says, I've come. And so Peter looks him up in the book, sees all of his sinful activities, and says, you're not fit to enter heaven. You look at your life; it's been all sinful activities. So the man said, well, the priest is your representative, right? And he said, if I put $20 you give a donation, I'll go to heaven. So, just like we were reading, the master's responsible for the servant. So he that's what he told me, and I expect you to honor his word. And Peter said, forget it. So then the man said, you speak to your boss. I expect you should be honorable up here. So the St. Peter approached God and said, there's this man at the gate, and he's all totally sinful in his history. But he says, he gave $20 at the church, and now he wants to, he expects to be admitted to heaven. So God slowly reached into his pocket, pulled out a $20 bill, and said, give him back his $20 and tell him to go to hell. So it's instructive also. We think that by meeting certain requirements, we guarantee ourselves some sort of result, either a favorable karmic situation in the heavenly planets, or we'll go back to Godhead because we did this and this and this. But it's finally, everything is dependent on the mercy of Krishna. It's not by some pious activities, one can go back to Godhead. But it's really by developing one's love for Krishna. That's what the spiritual world is. It's the world where everyone loves Krishna. So we want to develop that love, that eagerness to serve Krishna. And that's the only real qualification, not just ticking the boxes. And certainly not, I gave this much money and I expect to go. Some other questions, comments? Yes?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj. So regarding the question related to mercy, so can we consider like Krishna is giving me mercy in such a way, like he's giving such an intelligence that it doesn't matter whether I'm in good condition or bad condition. I means like a situation of Kunti Maharani. So we can say like she was receiving mercy in such a way that she's mentally so strong, then she's not expecting like favorable or unfavorable situation.
Yeah, for the Krishna conscious person, everything is favorable. Prabhupada gave that example of the stock trader. In the shares market, the stock trader, he's happy whether the value goes up or the value goes down. When the market goes up, then he sells and makes a profit. When the market goes down, he buys cheap. So for him, either way is good. You just have to know how to take advantage of either situation. So the pure devotee depends on Krishna. If things are going nicely, then it's Krishna's mercy. If things are going badly, it's an opportunity to depend more on Krishna. So either way, every situation is favorable for him. Something else? Krishna, 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 Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. You mentioned that a disciple should behave in a manner that doesn't cause too much trouble to the spiritual master.
Well, ideally, he should behave in such a way that he's a credit to the spiritual master. Just like our Srila Prabhupada, how Srila Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was glorified by the activities of his disciple, Srila Prabhupada. But we may not be on Srila Prabhupada's level, we're not. But if we contribute something, if we do what we're supposed to do and we make some contribution, then we're a credit. Then we're a credit to the spiritual master. Otherwise, we become a burden to the spiritual master. And didn't follow the principles, adopted some crazy ideas, this, that, was irresponsible, didn't follow his duties. So we should try to be a credit. That would be nice. That incident is there with Giriraj Maharaj. Maybe some of you have heard when he was, of course, the temple president of ISKCON Juhu back in the days when that fight was going on, and that Mr. Nair was trying to cheat and take back the property and cheat the devotees. And on one occasion, and the devotees are, opposing him very effectively. He wasn't expecting them to come back so strongly, but under Prabhupada's direction, they were fighting him. So at one point, he asked Giriraj Maharaj to come for some meeting concerning the property. And the man said, "I'll send my car." And Giriraj Maharaj said, "You don't have to send me, I'll just come." "No, I'll send my car for you." So he sent his car, or maybe he came himself. "I'll come in my car." And he arranged that Giriraj Maharaj, there would be like 3 people in the back seat. Giriraj Maharaj would be in the middle, and I don't know who was on one side, but on the other side there was this woman who was a prostitute. And so he's a brahmachari, and she's sitting next to him. And at some point she puts her hand on his leg, and it's like, where's this going? And he was a young man, not directly endowed with a spiritual body. And this, woman is coming on to him. But he thought that if I get involved with this woman, what will happen to Hare Krishna land? What will happen to Hare Krishna land? What will happen to Prabhupada's desire? So he was able to resist the spell or break the spell. Because he was thinking that I can't become a discredit to my spiritual master. Something else? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So I read that one should obey his guru even if he goes to the bar. That sentence was very interesting to me. So the devotee should never see the human nature in his guru. And because if he sees it, then that devotee is considered as fallen. Then that devotee, yeah. So, but on the other way, Bhakti-Vinod Thakur said that one should question his guru's instructions in a nice and sweet word, humbly, if those instructions he's not considering good for himself. So how to relate to those two definitely opposite statements in a way that...
Well, let's take them separately. That if we have, the spiritual master gives us some instructions, but we're thinking, maybe this isn't very good for me, this is not So then one can ask the spiritual master in a sweet and humble way. That, you're asking me to do this, but this is my concern. I'll be all alone, or I'll be doing something I'm not very good at, or what about this other service that I'm supposed to do or that I like to do? Whatever it is, we have some question. You're telling me this, but what about that? Or maybe some question about the philosophy. You're telling me this, but I thought that. So one is allowed to ask questions, just like Arjun, that Vyamishrene Vavakyena Buddhir Mohayasiva me Tadeka Badam Nishchitya Yena Shreyoham Apniyam. Sometimes you encourage me in karma yoga, sometimes you encourage me in knowledge and detachment. I'm confused. Please tell me one thing. Tadeka Badanishchitya. Tell me one thing definitely, because I'm I'm confused. So he doesn't say, Krishna, in the second chapter you said this, and in the fourth chapter you said that. Gotcha. This is contradictory. But very humble disciple. He's allowed to ask questions, but in a sweet way, in a submissive way, that Guru Maharaj, this is, you asked me to do this, and now you're asking me to do that. I'm, which is, what do you actually want me to do? Or I was thinking I should do this, but if you really want me to do that. So not in a challenging way, not like an upstart, but like a Bruyu Snigdha, submissive disciple. That should be the mood. Not that we can't ask a question, but that we should be humble servants, not thinking that we know more, that we're, who's Guru Maharaj anyway? What does he really know about this stuff? We should take always be conscious of our lower position. Even a servant may say, or an inferior soldier, he says, sir, I know you've told us to do this, but sir, I have a question that it seems like the enemy is located here and here and here. And sir, are you sure you wanted us to do this, sir? He doesn't say, oh, you knucklehead. You send our troops there, we're all going to be, blasted up the face of the earth. You just don't know what you're doing. Let me tell you how we should do it right. He takes a humble position. Of course, now everybody's a loudmouth and uncouth. But children would be trained to speak to their elders like that. Students would be trained to speak to their teachers like that. Even elder brothers, in Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. All the fireflies have come out. Okay. Even the elder brothers are respected by the younger brothers because they're, higher in a higher position. So, and it used to be, don't speak back to your elders. Children would be trained like that. Now it's like, all that goes to hell. It's like, even I'm old enough to be shocked when children address their parents by their first name. It doesn't, it's like, where are you coming from? Where I grew up, you couldn't do that. And in most Indian families till today, you can't do that. So the disciple is conscious that I'm in the lower position. I'm placing myself under the care of the spiritual master. So if I have some question or even some, doubt or misgiving, then I should put it in a sweet way, in a humble way, and be ready to take it, Well, no, this is what I want you to do. All right. And let me accept. So that's Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's instruction there. As far as the bar room, it's a Bengali quotation, I think Chaitanya Bhagavat, that even if I see Nityananda Prabhu going into the liquor house, still my faith is there that he's Nityananda Prabhu, he can do these things. Tajiya Sam Nadoshaya, for the powerful, there's no discrepancy. The powerful, there's no discrepancy. Just like your seniors, you can't stay up and watch television till 11 o'clock, but your parents can, because they're senior. Or anything. The Krishna, he can do so many things because he's super powerful. If he dances with gopis, it's fine. Because he's super powerful, he can also lift Govardhan Hill. So Nityananda Prabhu is in that position. And generally the spiritual master is also seen. Not that I find some fault. That's mentioned in Nectar of Instruction. That the supposed faults of the spiritual master should be seen like stuff floating in the Ganges. The Ganges is considered so pure, we put it on our heads, we put it on our tongues, we bathe in it, we worship the deity with it. But if you actually go to the Ganges, you'll see that there's stool floating into it, sometimes floating in it, there's sometimes dead bodies, there's, all sorts of stuff. But a person who has spiritual vision will see this. No, this is the Ganges. And not be disturbed by seeing this, or this, or this. So Srila Rupa Goswami says that we may see some bodily imperfections. The spiritual master is born in a lower family, or the spiritual master has a bad complexion, or the spiritual master's, I know one of my godbrothers, he came to the temple first time, and he was very impressed because Prabhupada was leading kirtan, and he looked this is 1966 or something, 67, he looked very mystical. Then he ended the kirtan, Prabhupada ended the kirtan, and put down the kartals, took out the book, put on his glasses, and the devotee thought, he's a Swami, what does he need glasses for? Right? We have some conception of what the spiritual master is supposed to be, what a Swami is supposed to be, by our material calculation. He shouldn't need glasses. So we may see some apparent bodily imperfection in the spiritual master. That should be disregarded. And similarly, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I think it is, comments that even in the subtle body, we may see that the spiritual master sometimes becomes irritable, or sometimes becomes angry, or sometimes this or that. So that's also not to be taken. Hare Krishna. That's also not to be taken under serious consideration. That's superficial vision. Gurushu Nadamati, Arche Vishnu Shila Adir, Gurushu Nadamati, then Vaishnave Jati Buddhi. The verses there, that this is material vision. This is the vision of a person who has hellish intelligence. What is that? Archa Vishnu Ashilati, that the deity of the Lord in the temple is just a statue. He's just stone. And Gurushu Nadamati, and the spiritual master is just another human being. And Vaishnave Jati Buddhi. And the Vaishnavas, this one's a Kshatriya, and this one's a Shudra, and this one's an American, and this one's an African, and this one's a this, and this one's a that. Seeing in terms of their caste or their country or their, whatever their background. Vaishnave Jati Buddhi. This is all material vision. All material vision. Or to think that the Ganga is ordinary water. It's all material vision. One has to see spiritually. Just like we think, prasadam, those are just some fruits and vegetables. No, it's not just fruits and vegetables. And Prabhupada gave it evidence that you may say it's just an apple, but we see that by taking this apple, people become devotees. It has spiritual potency, Krishna prasadam. So one shouldn't think that these are just ordinary, the Guru is an ordinary man, Vaishnavas are ordinary members of this or that caste. So the spiritual master should be seen with that kind of regard. Acharya mam bhajaniyan, naiva manyeta karyachat. One should see namarcha buddhi shilasya sarveva sarvadeva mayo guru. The spiritual master should be seen as the direct representative of Krishna. Or Krishna says, that's my very self. So we may think that we see some flaw. We should leave that aside. That shouldn't be taken very seriously. Only in some rare instance, there's something really terrible. That's explained by, there are 3 quotes. One is from Mahabharata, two are from elsewhere. The essence of them is all the same. That if the Guru becomes sinful, becomes antagonistic toward the Vaishnavas, becomes a non-devotee, loses his sense of what's to be done and not to be done, essentially becomes what Prabhupada would say, a nonsense, then one shouldn't follow him. Otherwise, he goes to hell and you go to hell. Not that all nonsense. No, he's my guru. No. Then the instruction is that we should back off. Even if there's something sinful, then Narhari Sarkar, associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says, you wait and see. Because Krishna says, apichet sudaracharo, he can quickly come back to the standard platform by some mistake, what is that, katanchit, by some quirk of fate, done something wrong, but he quickly comes back to the standard. All right, then even Brahma got attracted to his own daughter. But still we haven't rejected Brahma from the Sampradaya. So even if the spiritual master does something, if we see that he comes back to, we should still be a little reluctant that no, let us see. But then if we see no, he's just on and on and on and on, then all right, let me look elsewhere for my spiritual guidance, spiritual connection. Not that because he's sinful, I have to become sinful. He's taking LSD, I should take LSD. Not like that. Is that okay? And that should be a rare thing. That should be a rare thing. Therefore, those who are in the position, we were discussing, any disciple should think that I have to represent my guru. Then what then to speak of those who are leaders, sannyasis, gurus, GBC men, temple presidents, kirtan leaders, kirtan party leaders, anyone, they should think, no, I have to represent my guru. So I have to be, it's not just what I want to do, what will make me happy, what feels good, what meets my emotional needs, but what my duty is, so that I won't be a discredit, rather I'll be a credit to my spiritual master. So we should think that way, especially those who are in some responsible position. And what is that? What is the responsible? Mother, father? They're responsible also, because the children take their direction from the mother and father. So the mother and father should think that we have to be serious. Otherwise, children, they're great detectors of hypocrisy. They see that they're telling me one thing, but they're doing another thing. So then I have to be to the standard. The king, the Brahmin, the spiritual master, a husband, a mother and father, demigod. Demigods also. So all of these responsible people should act responsibly, so that their followers can be liberated from birth and death. Okay, we're at the end of our time. And who's leading kirtan? You're leading. Okay. And you know the rules, right? Okay, you're on.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare
Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram Rama 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 Hare Hare. Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. हरिनाम संकीर्तन यज्ञ की जय। जय शिला प्रभुपाद की।
Puramansa Parivrajacharya Ashtottara Sadashi Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Raj Prabhupada ki Jai. Adanta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham ki Jai. Navadip Dham ki Jai. Jagannath Puri ki Jai. Ganga Mai ki Jai. Jamana Mai ki Jai. Tulsi Devi ki Jai. Bhakti Devi ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Thank you for the nice kirtan.
Thank you,
Sweet and melodious.
Thank you, Maharaj.
And thank you all. Hare Krishna.